In the know, non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right, Purple Daily on draft every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, our podcast feeds. Thor Nystrom, Tyler Fornes here to break down a NFL draft-centric show every week here on Purple Daily. We've taken the mock draft season. We've morphed it into a 52-week show every week on Purple Daily. So shout out to everyone who has listened, consumed. We appreciate everyone making this show part of their Monday routine as well. Yes, this show will carry on also during the NFL season 2. So hit that subscribe button, Daily Vikings Entertainment. Anything you guys want answered even on a future episode, hit us up in the YouTube comments. We'll gladly ask it. I got 2 draft nerds with me here that can answer all these amazing questions that you guys have. So appreciate everyone listening to this show. Again, Purple Daily on draft with Thor Nystrom and Tyler Fornes. All right, boys, let's start here. Our colleague, our friend, our comrade, our sports dad, Judd Zulgad was slinging his fastballs at Kirk Cousins at OTAs, or minicamp, last week. He was asking about the future contract. Thomason's gone, so someone's got to ask those awkward, hard questions that no one else wants to ask. Insert Judd Zulgad to do so. And he was asked if, as these contract talks with Kirk Cousins, had they picked up? Are they going to resume? What's the plan here? And Kirk basically said, I plan to not have these conversations again until March. Now, something could happen. Who knows? Maybe they actually ended up extending him. But I want to spin this now into our exact theme. That is Purple Daily on draft. And I am also, by the way, a huge fan of Succession. So we can just tie all this basically in together here, okay? Thor, I'll start with you. It has this, now that we know this from Kirk, basically out of the horse's mouth, that I plan to play out this contract. We'll renegotiate maybe in March. Maybe he comes back. Is the succession plan, has it started for the Minnesota Vikings? And should they already be starting to look at the next quarterback in 2024 in purple?
Yeah, it has. And what's apropos about the show Succession is we don't know who the next person is going to be. Like after Logan, right? Like everything's up in the air. We don't know if it's going to be Kendall or if it's going to be the other dippy one, or if it's going to be the daughter, or if it's going to be the guy from True Blood, or if it's going to be one of the other guys. I don't want to give the spoiler alert for people that haven't seen it, but yeah, like we just don't know yet. Could Kirk come back after that? Could it be a draft guy? Could it be an outside free agent? Like we just don't know. What the Vikings have won themselves, it's the flexibility after that. Right. But it's up in the air. That's the other side of the coin with this thing. But I like the strategy of this, not locking yourself in for the future. That's kind of the thing that's frustrated us in the past is you sort of roll it forward in advance, and then you don't have that flexibility heading into the next season. That's what the Vikings have won themselves by the strategy that they employed this offseason. So you head into the this season with that. And then next off season, ostensibly, now you have some options with the quarterback position, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, Forno. I'll give you another analogy here to a degree. I don't think Kirk Cousins is on this guy's level, and I know you would adamantly disagree. I feel like, Roman Reigns, we'll give you a wrestling pun here. Roman Reigns has been the Universal Champ forever. And look, again, Roman, Kirk, okay, split some hairs here. But regardless, he's been the Universal Champion for almost 1,000 days now at this point. But the succession plan has to start. Is it over 1,000 now? Okay.
Yep.
The succession plan has started. We thought maybe it was going to be Cody Rhodes a few months ago, but not yet. We're going to finish that story, pun intended, again later on. Has the succession plan at quarterback started, and are the Vikings looking to draft that guy by next March to find their replacement at quarterback?
Let's start here. WWE was fed 2 natural baby faces that the fans got over with right away. Like they were all in on Sami Zayn. They were all in on Cody Rhodes. WWE said, hey, we'll just screw them over like we do all your favorites because we don't care about you. Well, the difference with here is the Vikings haven't had a top babyface to challenge the heel. And Kirk Cousins isn't necessarily a heel, but in this analogy, he's Roman Reigns. So let's work with it. Who's been there to challenge him? Nobody. They've been afraid to bring in anybody quality to either compete with him, develop behind him. Mond, there was more Rick Spielman just kind of going semi-rogue and being like, we'll just take a guy because we need to take a guy. Like the idea of Mond was great. The player Mond was not. And I think that's kind of been the theme here. The idea of, we should have a guy. but then you don't execute it. And is Jaren Hall that guy? I have more faith that he could be a potential guy under this regime and this staff than I ever did about Kellen Mond under Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer. One, because I think Jaren Hall is a better prospect than Kellen Mond. Two, I have faith that these guys actually put in the work, the time, and have that faith that he could potentially be something someday versus what the whole Kellen Mond experiment was. I really find it interesting how they've kind of gone about everything, because you have Kirk. He's going to be playing on his 4th lame duck season where he does not have a contract after that current year. He did so 3 times with Washington. 2 of those were on the franchise tag. So they liked him enough to keep him around, but not enough to really give him that big boy contract. And when you kind of look at everything, the Vikings are trying to get pieces in place to provide support for a younger quarterback. You have bookend tackles. You have 2 first-round wide receivers. One of them has an outside chance of being the greatest of all time if he keeps up this frenetic pace. And those are necessary components for a young quarterback to be successful. I was huge on let's go get a guy now. We talked about a lot on this show in its early stages about trading up for Anthony Richardson, trading up for CJ Stroud, trading up for Bryce Young, even though that was a certain impossibility versus the other two. When you look at all those encompassing pieces, if a quarterback comes in here with all that talent around him, he's going to have a lot bigger chance to be successful off the bat and really maximize that rookie contract versus, say, like how the Jaguars drafted Trevor Lawrence. They drafted him into a dumpster fire organization, and now he's finally being able to really take that step because they're getting pieces around him and they've got capable players. Justin Fields in year 3, he's going to be in the same spot. Dumpster fire that he walked into, and now can he really make that jump? And the Vikings are going to have a position when they get that guy, they can just start running because of all the premium positions on offense that they already have filled with really good football players and potential or current all pros. And I think that's the key.
Okay, so what do you guys say when you hear that, hey, could they move on from Kirk Cousins? And then, national pundits or even defenders of Kirk will say, well, you're entering QB unknown. You can't enter that murky territory of if you want to move on from Kirk, what's your next step here? I guess, Thor, if you're a QB needed team, right? Like, let's say you're going to the draft, quarterback's number 1 with a bullet, on the top of your needs. Doesn't it take that away? I kind of feel like that's just a little bit of a cop out. Like it's not just to say that, hey, yeah, we're going to enter uncertainty and we might downgrade from Kirk Cousins production wise. But I guess when you hear that, what will the Vikings do if they enter QB uncertainty? What kind of pops in your head?
I would rather enter the unknown than known mediocrity. In the NFL, you don't want to be in that quagmire between 8-9 and 10-7 every year. Yeah. I would rather be on one of the polarities. I am perfectly happy to be in the searching for the quarterback thing as opposed to in that quagmire. So great, let's do it. Let's play Russian roulette with the quarterback situation. I'm perfectly happy doing that. As far as the quarterback situation itself, what this is going to come down to is how do the Vikings finish this year, right? And if Kirk lights it up this year and he proves to the Vikings that he's worth another couple years, great, give him the money, right? I mean, this is a prove a year for him. Kirk is perfectly happy with the prove a years. He's comfortable with that, as you mentioned. He's done this before. This is not his first rodeo. He has talked to the media about he's comfortable with this. Great, let's do it again. Right. And then if and then he can go elsewhere and the Vikings are going to get draft pick comp for him if he leaves. Right. So that's great for the Vikings as well. If it goes that way. And then, if the Vikings, if he doesn't play, as well, whatever, and he leaves and that thing happens and the Vikings record is not quite as good, then the Vikings are going to be picking high enough in the draft where hopefully you get access to one of these better prospects. If the record's not very good, then it's going to be Caleb Williams or Drake May. I'm perfectly happy sacrificing a season to get up that high. The Wilfs disagree with me on this. A sect of the fan base disagrees with me on this, sacrificing one of the seasons. That's just a taste preference type of a thing. If you're in the middle of the first round, that's where it starts to get kind of wonky with the quarterbacks in this class, right? Like, because then you're going to have to take a chance potentially on a guy like Quinn Ewers or whatever. So that's what you're looking at, like in terms of this draft. But yeah, like the top of the draft is we're gonna have to get to get one of those top two guys, and then we're just gonna have to see during the season does one of these other guys jump up. But yeah, as far as the situation goes itself, I'm perfectly comfortable in the situation that the Vikings have set up for themselves as far as the Kirk Cousins situation goes.
Forno, I know you write about a lot of college football quarterbacks that are going into the draft and whatnot. I guess when you hear that QB uncertainty territory, I guess what is your first retort to that when people say you can't enter QB uncertainty, and especially how it pertains with the Vikings?
Well, I think Thor painted a really nice picture. You don't want to be in purgatory. What happens if the Chiefs, after a 13-3 season, stick with Alex Smith instead of going and trying to shoot the moon for Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Like, they had the perfect situation because outside of like the elite offensive minds in the NFL, there was so much doubt and uncertainty that Mahomes would ever be able to translate air raid offense. He's got to learn like NFL footwork for like basic like play action concepts, playing under center. Like there was a long learning curve, but when you watched him play football, the traits and the positive elements just jumped off the screen. And the smart people in the league knew what to do with him. They knew how to elevate him to that next level and make him arguably the greatest football player that we may have ever seen in our lifetimes by the time his career is done. But you have to be able to willing to take that chance from a really good team and try to make them a Super Bowl winner. And you can't do that without trying. You can't do that by standing pat. You can't do that by looking at your quarterback and being like, hey, this guy's good, but he's just good. And if you want in the most important position in football, because this isn't the 80s anymore, you can't win a Super Bowl with an average quarterback unless you have the elite of the elite defense, the 2002 Bucks, the 2000 Ravens, the 1985 Chicago Bears. Those defenses could carry anybody to a Super Bowl because they were the best units we've ever seen. But if you don't have that, you have to figure out a way to improve the quarterback position and get one of those guys. Or you have to have everything perfect around him, quarterback on a rookie contract, et cetera, et cetera. Take a look at the past Super Bowl winners. They're like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Like, you're looking at the best types of quarterbacks around. You're not looking at an average or slightly above average quarterback, which is that range that Kirk Cousins sits in. Figure out a guy that you can believe in and jump for him. Thor mentioned guys like Quinn Ewers. There's talent. You got to find and develop.
We should do a weekly pie chart of almost percent chance that Kirk Cousins is back in 2024 and percent chance they draft a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah,
I'll give you just a brief pie here as you guys maybe sit on your ingredients in the oven as it preheats very quickly here. Maybe it's an air fryer. Those things preheat really damn quick, so it's an air fried pie, if you will. I will say I will go with this. I will say 80% chance that they draft a quarterback in the first round, 20% chance that Kirk Cousins is back. That's where I sit with this pie. I feel like we can mold and craft this pie so many different ways, and honestly, the fine tuning and the combing and the cutting of this pie will take place more accurately as the season plays out. But it's June 19th. We're like 10 months out from the draft, I guess. Thor, if you were cooking up that Thor Nystrom pie in the air fryer, where do those slices go for you?
Right now, I'll go 55, draft a quarterback first round, 45.
Okay.
Extend Kirk.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's probably the safer option. And to be honest, if Kirk balls out, right, wouldn't be shocked at all if he comes back here. I know he could technically go on the open market and bid, but I would be.
And you should probably put like 10%. I'm gonna put 10% to sign an outside free agent and take 5 from each. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
take 5 out of each, make it happen. Okay. Forno, how about you? If you were cooking up that pie, how are you divvying it up in terms of Kirk being back next season in 2024 and also drafting a quarterback?
To me, this screams Venn diagram because there's crossover. You could literally have both happen. So I'm going to put 80% chance that the Vikings end up drafting a quarterback, 20% chance that Kirk ends up coming back, with a combined 10% chance that both happen. because I think that they really don't want to take a step back. And if you really can't have that shot at Mayor Williams and you have to, like, let's quote unquote settle for a guy like Quinn Ewers, and hey, you want to redshirt him, then you sign Kirk to a 1-year deal and you bring him back, or that outside guy, as Thor mentioned, and you give him the opportunity to sit back and learn and figure out how to play the position at an NFL level before you rush him onto the field.
So we threw out an idea on Purple Daily, I believe on Saturday's episode, or it might have been Feedback Friday, actually. And in natural Vikings Twitter fashion, it got aggregated all over the place, and people called us clowns, which is nothing new or offensive to us because we're very much used to it. But we threw out the idea of, if you were to get the number 1 pick in next year's draft, would you consider moving Justin Jefferson? Now, everyone said, how could you even toss this out without really giving a side of, which side are you on? Are you going to answer this question, or are you saying it's just absolutely ludicrous to even suggest doing so? I guess I'm going to put you guys on the spot. You can join our clown car parade, if you will, getting out one by one. I guess if that philosophy or if that offer came to you, Thor, and you had an opportunity to get into the number 1 spot or wherever it is, maybe top 3 even, would you consider using Justin Jefferson as trade bait, or would you rather go a different route?
Wait, so it's would you use Justin Jefferson to get the first pick? It's not, you have the first pick?
Yeah, you would use Justin Jefferson to get the first pick. You'd be used as that,
Okay.
as something, as a sweetener to get up to the number 1 overall pick. Would you trade Justin Jefferson to go immediately up to number 1 in next year's draft?
For 1 second, I was getting excited of this idea of Caleb Williams spending his career with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
I got really excited for a second. Oh, that gets really hard because, of course, you want Caleb Williams in Minneapolis for the next decade. Man, because it broke my heart when they got rid of Randy Moss. That never should have happened either.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sacrifice JJ, but oh boy, would it be fun to have Caleb Williams here for a decade. That's a tough one. That is a really tough one. It's not clowns to ask that question. It's not clowns to ask that question. That's
Vikings Twitter.
Yeah. This is a Sophie's choice, because Caleb Williams is one of the best quarterback prospects to come out, over the last decade. So, I mean, you have to at least ask it, but JJ, he's one of the, arguably is the best non-quarterback in the NFL. Right. And he just turned 24, right? Like, he's one of the most dominant players in the game. Oh gosh, go to Forno first. I need to collect my thoughts here. Yeah,
okay.
I need
Forno,
to process this one.
If you were able to process that in time, as Thor is now trying to do the same thing, would you use Justin Jefferson as a sweetener or as the main piece? I guess, because it will take more than JJ just to go up to number 1. But would you use that piece to get up to number 1 overall in next year's draft?
I gotta say, Odie is barking in the background right now, and he's calmed down.
Got thoughts.
Yeah, he's got thoughts, and he says it's ludicrous. And quite frankly, I agree. Now, quarterback you can hear him right now. Odie is absolutely livid at the idea of trading Justin Jefferson. And I love the idea of being able to move up to get a guy like Caleb Williams, but I'm not sacrificing arguably the most important player outside of the quarterback position to go get him, especially as you mentioned, Declan. You didn't say a 1-for-1. You said sweetener. To me, that makes it absolutely an abomination, and you can't do it. You're talking about trading a guy who's the best wide receiver in the game, or at the very worst, second or third, depending on how you view Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams in comparison to Jefferson. You can't do that. You can't sacrifice that type of piece plus extra capital. Like, if the Vikings end up with, like, say, pick 25 and Jefferson for 1, like, I'd fire Kwesi on the spot. You can't make that move.
Yeah,
You can have a good quarterback, and Jefferson elevates them. Jefferson changes your offense. He changes how you scheme. He changes how defenses attack you. And in a different but exactly similar way, he is this team's Randy Moss. Because if you take Jefferson out, guess what? It's the Lions game. You can just have everybody else try to beat you. And the Vikings have better horses this year to do that than they did last year. So it's a lot harder to just focus on Jefferson because of the talent around you. Like, you can't do it. And like, to me, it's a non-starter. If you want Jefferson, like, it's got to be like multiple first-round picks. Like, I'm talking Herschel Walker trade.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And the first, so I agree with Forno in terms of it would take more than the first pick, I think, for Jefferson. I do agree with that. Like it as opposed to vice versa. And I think I do lean that way as well. I don't know if I could trade Jefferson right now. It's hard to wrap your head around that. But yeah, it's also, if I had a path to Caleb Williams, it's also hard to wrap my head around turning that down. But I don't think I could trade Jefferson either. He's just too singular of a talent. Like he's just such a magnetic force on the field. Like, you think of last year, the last 17 games of how 2 defenders or 3 every single play just sucked over to that side of the field. And if Jordan Addison this year can just beat single coverage, how like crazy that's going to get, like, I mean, yeah, anyway, I don't think I can get rid of Jefferson. So anyway.
I love it. I love the dissension here. I love how polarizing this topic is, because clearly there is some people that are like, oh yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. And then there's some people who are like, no, I couldn't even consider doing so. It is a very interesting way to look at it. Of course, maybe the Vikings maybe Kirk gets injured, Darisaw gets hurt, Jefferson only plays like 5 games. They just get the number 1 overall pick next year. We don't got to worry about trading everything. As bad as it would be in the short term, it would be a huge, obviously, gain in the long term. Other mini camp notes, unless you guys got any other final thoughts here on this quarterback succession plan or anything else. Otherwise, I can get to this little running back topic that we can dive into too.
No, yeah, let's get into it.
All right, so Judd, with his field glasses at TCO last week, noticed that obviously Alexander Madison's going to be starting running back. We all knew that. Can he handle the workload? We'll see. But actually, it was Kene Nwangwu getting most of the reps behind him as RB2, which was shocking to, I think, a lot of us, because we were trying to figure out, is this guy just a kick returner? Now the league's trying to abolish kickoffs, so he's even going to make the roster. And now all of a sudden, and I get training camp still about a month away, a lot can play out in training camp, and we'll get a final verdict then. But I find it incredibly intriguing that Nwangwu has now kind of throttled himself up to RB2 ahead of not just Ty Chandler, but Dwayne McBride too. I guess, Forno, if Nwangwu makes the roster as the as the second running back, does that mean Dwayne McBride is probably not going to make the 53? I guess, what do you kind of make of the fact that Nwangwu is the backup running back to Alexander Madison right now?
They kept 4 last year plus CJ Ham. I don't see why they wouldn't be willing to do it again, especially considering how high of a grade they had on Dwayne McBride. When they talked about him in their presser, they said they had a starting grade on McBride, and that's why they took him in round 7. They didn't make it sound like they were prioritizing running back. They just prioritized a guy that they had much, much higher on their board, and they just couldn't pass up the value. And there's a lot of merit in that, because the draft, you take good football players and you fix holes in free agency. So I'm more than happy with that decision, and I could totally see them just keeping 4 guys like they did last year. But Nwangwu is running back 2 right now. One, I'm shocked, and we talked about him a lot on this space. We haven't seen anything, Thor and myself, that has shown that he can be an NFL running back, because his limited slaps have been a huge mixed bag. Even in the screen game where you think he'd be a dynamite weapon, hasn't shown any real proficiency to do that. And when you pair everything together, he just hasn't looked like an NFL running back. Plus, it's minicamp. Does that mean he's really number 2 on the depth chart? Or does that mean he's just being given number 2 reps right now because he's been in the league for the most amount of time compared to Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride, and they want to give him run to see if they can potentially give him that running back 2 spot? Maybe this is the beginning of that competition, and they just want more evidence so they can make a better decision, specifically with Nwangwu. And we know they love Ty Chandler. We know they like Dwayne McBride because they had a starter grade on him. I'm not reading into a lot, and I know Judd will differ, and I'll have him on the Real Forno show tonight to talk about it in our first ever Vikings Wire roundtable. But I'm not reading anything into it until he shows me he can be a running back. He hasn't done so yet, and just having him get minicamp snaps isn't going to change that for me. I need more.
All right, Thor, I know you're a big Dwayne McBride guy, and you loved this draft pick, but Nwangwu kind of coming out of left field here as the second running back on the unofficial depth chart of the Vikings. I guess, what do you make of that move?
Yeah, I hate to disagree with my boy Judd. And I know that Judd likes to get in there in June, and sometimes he takes some of these observations and they turn out to have some lasting stuff. You know, he's picked out some guys that we didn't think were going to make the roster, and they end up making the roster, stuff like that. I think this one's a little bit premature as far as like the being the RB2. I don't think this one's going to have legs. Nwangwu, you go back to his time at Iowa State, he didn't show much. And I know he was caught behind NFL guys there, but like Forno's talking about, you're thinking about his utility. It's like, where is it? You talk about the receiving thing. The kid had 7 receptions over 4 years at Iowa State. Like you're trying to think about, how do we get this kid on the field? Yeah, he's behind an NFL kid, but can you get him on the field? For receiving downs? Can you get him on the field for pass blocking? No, he's terrible at pass blocking. He can't catch the ball. Now in the NFL level, he's caught 6 balls over 2 years. So he's caught 13 balls over the last 6 years of football. Again, he's an awful pass blocker, and he's never shown an intuitive ability as a runner. He does have good hands as far as, like receiving the kicks. I will give him that. He doesn't fumble the ball. He's showing that as well. The one skill he's showing is that he can field the kicks, and he can do that. As far as running and receiving as a runner, he has not shown a skill for that beyond other runners on the roster. Ty Chandler outperformed him throughout his collegiate career. Dwayne McBride outperformed him throughout his collegiate career. Alexander Madison outperformed him throughout his collegiate career. And not only that, I could give you a laundry list of street free agent running backs right now. Literally a laundry list. I could give you 20 names that I think would be better than Kene Nwangwu next year. So, no, I don't think that he will be RB2 next year. In fact, I don't think he's going to be RB3 next year for the Vikings. He's running there right now, but we're in June. Once we get to August, I don't think he'll be there, certainly not by September.
So I guess what the thought process here, right? Nwangwu is an electric kick returner. I mean, the touchdown against the Patriots last year was basically a game clincher for the Vikings. He has a special knack there. I guess, the thing that maybe Vikings fans have PTSD about is, Cordero Patterson, right? Like he came on a little bit as a wide receiver with Bradford at the end, but really was just more this weapon. And now he's being used as just put the ball in his hands in space, wherever it is, and let him go. I guess, Forno, is that maybe what they kind of want to do here with Nwangwu? I mean, I don't know if that's the best bet. And I know Patterson's probably more of a freak athlete and just a lot bigger and faster than Nwangwu is. But is that probably the thought process, to get Nwangwu, just get the ball in his hands and let the guy cook, I guess? What do you kind of make of that?
Well, if that was the thought process, why didn't they do it earlier? You can manufacture touches. You can figure out how to get a guy the football. Here's the problem. If that's all you can do is catch a screen pass, the defense is going to figure that out, and they're going to figure it out fast. And they're going to counter it really quickly. And you have to be able to do more than just one thing, especially a running back. You have to be good in multiple phases of the game. Otherwise, if you can't pass block, and they know by tendencies that you are never out there to pass block, that you're only out there for X, Y, and not Z, they're going to know something's up. They're going to know you're either getting the football or you're going to be like some kind of decoy. Like that's where being a well-rounded player comes so far into play, and why, even though I'm very low on Madison, why he's so high in the Vikings' eyes. He can do everything. When you put him on the field, there's questions of what is this guy going to do? There is no real tendency that says Madison's only on the field for the X. He's only on the field for Y. He can't be on the field because he can't catch the ball. He's not good at running out of shotgun. He can do a little bit of everything. And that utility means so much when you're talking about scheming against an NFL defense. With Nwangwu, if he can only do one thing, it's borderline useless because they're going to be able to key in on it. And that's why I don't think he's gotten a lot of run. The Cordell Patterson thing, I think you can completely blame on North Turner. And it's very frustrating because if you would have had any form of creativity with that offensive mind and not just trying to pigeonhole him into one thing, which is why Laquan Treadwell was drafted, they wanted him to be like Michael Irvin. if you had a creative offensive mind like Kevin O'Connell is, he's going to find ways to use players. Patterson would have turned out a lot differently. And with Nwangwu, I haven't seen anything close to the potential of what Cordell Patterson was with the ball in his hands. And we can pinpoint it to one game. Go back and watch 2013 Baltimore Ravens, where there were 35 points scored in the last 3 minutes. That is why Patterson's a much different situation than Nwangwu.
So I'm looking at Nwangwu, his time at Iowa State. They only allowed him 30 over his 4 years, only allowed him 35 times. They allowed him pass pro reps over the 4 seasons. He allowed 5 pressures in those 35 pass pro reps. This kid can't pass block at all. You can't let him back there. He's going to get your quarterback flattened. So he can't do that. He can't run routes. Like, it's like, what are you doing with him then? He doesn't have instincts yet to run, right? Like, I mean, it's just like, what do you got there? You know, I mean, that's that. I think that's where Forno and I are sort of like, like we've seen it with Chandler, you know, at over 2 schools. 2 P5 schools. We seen it at Tennessee. He came out as a ballyhooed recruit. We seen it at UNC, right? Like we seen it with McBride over several years at UAB. We seen it with Madison at the NFL now for a couple years, and we seen it at Boise State for several years. But it's like with Nwangwu, you seen it at the kick returning a little bit, right? But like as a runner, you ain't never seen it in any phase whatsoever. Not in college, not in the NFL.
Interesting, fellas. Let's go down this path here. So I saw 2024 NFL draft sleepers, under the radar prospects here, from Matt Miller of ESPN. And I want to actually start with this one here because obviously this guy's local and he made the list. Tyler Nubin, safety for the University of Minnesota here. We can even, get a little rouser going if you want. If that's your jam, roll the boat, Sky Mago Gophers. I don't have a football team. My athletic director cut football at St. Cloud State. It's a whole topic in its own right that I will spare everyone listening to right now. But he lists Tyler Nubin and says he surprised the football world when he returned to Minnesota following a stellar 2022 season. But even a well-known Big Ten player, he has a chance to shoot up draft boards should he continue the level of play the past 2 years. So Tyler Nubin, obviously the Vikings have Lewis Cine, which I want to get into with you guys on a future episode of Purple Daily on Draft. We probably won't get to it today. But what do you make of Tyler Nubin? You guys are both here in Minnesota. You've seen a good amount of Gopher football. I guess, Thor, what do you make of Tyler Nubin potentially being maybe even a first-round pick in 2024?
It's a kid with great size and a kid with a well-rounded game. I'm looking at his PFF stats from last year. Made a huge jump in both tackling and run defense and was already really good in coverage. Last year, his PFF run grade, it jumps from 67 flat to 83.4. His tackling jumps from 50.2 to 76.5. His coverage is already good, 72.7, stays pretty static, 72.6. But you look at the his NFL quarterback rating against on targets, the year before 21.5, last year was 41.3. So like, I mean, really, really good. He had 3 interceptions the year before. Last year he had 4. He only allowed 1 touchdown in coverage each of the last 2 years. Really, really good stuff. Like I said, a really well-rounded safety. This is a kid who the NFL was greatly interested in, who considered going into the draft this past season, surprised people by not. There was agents that were surprised. There was NFL front offices that were surprised. If you were to rank out like the top 20 guys that the NFL was surprised that did not jump into the last draft, Nubin would have been on that list. So like, and people are going to be interested to see, can his game jump up even a little bit more? But like, this is a kid who is going to be one of the best safeties in America, coming back in. So, I mean, PJ Fleck, ecstatic that kid went back to school.
Yeah, he has a chance to be All-American, too, it says here, too. So he could be a very good player. Obviously, Antoine Winfield Jr. Had a very good career there at Minnesota as well. Has had a nice start with the Bucks. Forno, does Tyler Nubin do anything for you as a first-round talent next year in the draft?
I don't know if I necessarily see him as a first-round talent now, but here's the thing. Another really good season can change a lot, plus a really good testing process. And I think that Joe Rossi defense is going to put him in position to continue to make plays. And that's how you get noticed as a safety. You make plays and you don't get burned. You do those two things, and you're going to be able to put yourself on a lot of radars, because a lot of what safety is you have to have a certain amount of athleticism, but you also have to have really good eyes, really good intelligence, and have an understanding of what's happening in front of you so you can do and essentially be an eraser, because you don't want anything to get past you and you want to be able to attack. And I think Thor laid it out pretty nicely of how his size really impacts his game and how he can do a lot of things. And honestly, I was shocked he didn't come out, but that's a huge recruiting win for PJ Fleck, because recruiting isn't just about getting high school players. It isn't just about getting transfers. It's about getting guys to stay. And those of us who are really experienced at NCAA football understand how important that is. I knew that would pop you, man, because it's true. You have to recruit the guys you already have to stay in the building, whether it be prevent them from entering the transfer portal now or entering the NFL draft. And bringing Nubin back to a defense that lost a decent amount of talent. Yeah, Mariano Sori-Marin, Terrell Smith. There's some really good talent on that back seven that ended up leaving. Having Nubin come back and really step up into a leadership role is going to be huge for this Gophers team.
And you guys know how important now it is for the safeties to be able to move around and the versatility around the alignment. Nubin, over his career with the Gophers, 508 snaps played in the box, 949 snaps played in center field at free safety, 166 snaps played out of the slot. This is a kid that they can move around. You can do different things with him. You can deploy him out of the slot. You know, when you have a big target down there, you want to take care of him. You move Tyler down there. You can play him out of center field. You can trust him there. He can crash down the catch point, different stuff like that. He's certainly going to run the alley, defend the run, stuff like that. He's been good against the run his entire career. And he can also be that extra linebacker, when you want to deploy him as such against the run, when you want to do that and stuff like that. So very versatile piece like that in your defense.
All right, one more name here on Purple Daily on Draft. I don't think we've talked about this quarterback yet. Have we talked Devin Leary yet? Have we talked any of him before in even reference or in passing?
I don't think we have,
right? All right, so he's a transfer out of NC State. He's on Matt Miller's list here. He's 6'1", 215 pounds. He showed potential in 2021 for 35 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's now he's transferring to Kentucky. Couple notes here. He had a QBR of 7.8 outside the pocket. Again, that's a 0 to 100 scale, correct? QBR is. So 7.8. That is awful. So we'll have to improve that. But some scouts said that this scheme could be even better than he had at NC State. And don't be surprised if Leary actually has a better year than Will Levis did last year, who put up big numbers and obviously then end up slipping a little bit in the draft. I guess, what do you guys make? Thor, I'll start with you on Devin Leary, quarterback transfer out of Kentucky.
Well, he was great the 2 years before, 2020 and 2021 at NC State. And then last year, he was injured, but before the injury even, he didn't play as well. He sort of had the regression with NC State, but I sort of tossed that out. I think he's going to bounce back. I've been talking with a buddy about this, our mutual friend, Tyler, the Who's. We sort of have a scandalous. We sort of have a scandalous take that Kentucky, their backfield is going to be improved this year over what it was last year. I don't think people realize it. Because, Will Levis is gone and Chris Rodriguez is gone. Obviously, 2 guys that ended up getting drafted. But they signed Devin Leary and they signed Raymond Davis, a kid who's bounced around a little bit, started at Temple, and then he was at Vanderbilt. Raymond Davis is a super duper talented kid. He struggled with injuries a little bit, but I think Raymond Davis is gonna get drafted. When he's on the field, that kid is super explosive and NFL talent for sure. Devin Leary is an NFL talent as well. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but he has an NFL arm. It's not a howitzer. It's certainly not, like a Will Levis, for instance, type caliber arm, but he makes better decisions than Will Levis does. He doesn't play YOLO ball like Will Levis does. So I think he's going to be able to more consistently move the offense, because the issue with Levis was, again, he would make those YOLO type decisions. He not only would turn the ball over, but he would also just kill drives by just making the stupid decisions, the incompletions that should have been completions or different stuff like that. With Leary, he is going to keep you on schedule. right? Like he's going to, take the profit every single time, whatever. He's going to move the chains for you and whatnot. I don't think you're going to see the thing that happened last year with him. I think you're going to go back, especially the year before when he threw for almost the 3,500 yards. Dex, you mentioned the 35 to 5 TDI and T ratio, whatever. He also, looking at the PFF stats, 31-9 big time throw to turnover worthy play ratio is incredible. And that's the thing that turns over year more sustainably than the TD to INT ratio. So anyway, like I'm a big fan of Devin Leary, and I think there's a really good chance that Kentucky just actually upgraded their quarterback position with that trade.
Fornell, how about you, buddy?
I'm mad Devin Leary. I think Thor laid out the kind of compelling case. Nice. He was good with an average-ish NC State offense over the course of the 2020-2021, and he really helped elevate that group. But the second like those receivers left after 2021, he kind of took a step back, and then he tore his right pectoral, and he's a right-handed quarterback. So I am very concerned about how that's going to impact him moving forward. Obviously, it's not a shoulder, but when you talk about your throwing motion, that pectoral does a lot for you on the front side of that actual joint. How is that going to impact him? And how is he going to be able to improve that 7.8 QBR outside the pocket? I have real concerns about Leary, and taking that step back, even though like he lost the receivers. But when you're a third-year starter, you should be able to overcome some of that and be able to continuously show some growth and not really take that step back, especially in an ACC that was pretty weak outside of like Clemson. And Florida State had an okay year, but they beat Florida State, if I remember correctly. So you're looking at so many variables that just don't add up for me. He is going to a great situation with a system that's going to fit him really well. And if he plays well in that system, I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like and how he could project forward into the NFL. But I'm not super high on Devin Leary right now. He's outside my top 10 quarterbacks. And to me, like of the guys on this list, like the only quarterback you should talk to is the guy who's throwing to Malachi Corley. And he's on the list, and he's the wide receiver, Western Kentucky. You got to talk about Austin Reed. I think Reed's a better prospect right now than Devin Leary because there's no injury concerns.
I love it. All right, Purple Daily on Draft every Monday right here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Again, drop us a comment if you want us to talk about anything. I think next week, fellas, let's talk some Lewis Cine. We didn't get into it today, but man, not looking good at a mini camp and OTAs so far, and there's a lot of meat on that bone. So let's talk some Lewis Cine. Anything else you, the audience, wants us to discuss, hit us up in the YouTube comment section. You can tweet at us as well. Purple Daily on Draft every Monday here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back next week.